Hi, my name is Kim Jacobsen. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm an attorney, and at the age of 51, during a global pandemic, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. This video is one in a series of video blogs that I've done to talk about my experiences in the early diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. And today I'm going to talk about something a little more conceptual than other things I've talked about, which are pretty concrete. I'm going to talk about stigma today. It came to me to talk about stigma because when I initially started putting these videos out and sharing my story with friends and family, one of the most common remarks I got is, "This is so brave of you to do. That's so brave." And it caught me a little off guard, and I'm like, am I brave? Why do people think I'm brave when I am sharing my diagnosis and talking about Parkinson's disease? And I thought a lot about stigma and what is stigma and why is there stigma associated with having Parkinson's disease? So what is stigma? It's being embarrassed about something. It's being ashamed of it. It's keeping a secret. It has a negative feeling to it. And what I really think is that if I'm going to live my life embarrassed or ashamed, that is not going to be a fulfilling life. And I think if I can feel positive and try to stomp down some of the stigma, my life will improve. And how unfair is it to be embarrassed about a disease that I did not ask for? I did not purposefully do anything to obtain. And I don't know of anything I can do to prevent it or stop it at this point. So I kind of feel like it's not my fault. It actually is not my fault. So I don't want to be embarrassed about this. But at the same time, even though I can conceptually know that, in my mind, I know that there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Every time I tell someone that I have Parkinson's disease, I sort of in my mind think, okay, now are they going to perceive me differently? And I was starting to think about why there is so much stigma associated with Parkinson's disease. And some of that is probably symptomatic, and they're not symptoms that I have yet. But if you see someone who is moving slow or has trouble with their speech or trouble talking, you might perceive that they have some kind of intellectual disability. If you see someone who's imbalanced and has trouble keeping their balance, you might assume that they're intoxicated or on some kind of substance. I do have a little facial masking, which I'm working at being more expressive. But sometimes when you have facial masking, someone could perceive that as an unfriendly demeanor. Or I did, even before my diagnosis, have someone say, "It doesn't look like you're paying attention." Well, that's kind of the last thing I want to be perceived as an attorney, not paying attention. And when people have tremors, sometimes people feel like they're anxious or nervous people. And all these are really symptoms of PD that are not necessarily associated with any of those things. I don't know what my future symptoms of PD are going to be. Everyone gets their own little special Parkinson's disease, and I don't know what mine is going to turn into. Right now, if you saw me, I don't know if you would recognize any of the symptoms unless you sort of had an eye or a trained eye to look for them. I also believe that if I internalize these type of judgments about myself and try to hide the disease, that my symptoms will actually get worse. Because the irony with PD is the more anxious you get, the more symptomatic you get. So I know there have been times when I've been asked to do a more difficult task where I could kind of feel my face tremoring a little bit, feel my leg tremoring a little bit, my hand tremoring a little bit. You're kind of wearing your heart on your sleeve when you have PD in some respects. And I also don't want to lose that so important social engagement because I'm ashamed of the symptoms that I'm going through. Because as I've talked about before, I think that social connectivity is so important in the progression of this disease. And if you lose that because you're embarrassed or you're ashamed, it's almost digging yourself into a deeper hole. So what I've decided to do, because I like control, is to try to take some control. I haven't had any control of this pandemic. Neither has anyone, really. And that has been infuriating to me. I like a schedule. I like to know what I'm doing. I like to have plans. And this pandemic threw that all sort of on its head. And I don't have total control of the Parkinson's disease either. The symptoms are happening. I'm trying to do things to ease those symptoms or alleviate those symptoms. But to my knowledge, there's nothing I can do to totally stop the symptoms. They're gonna be there. It's gonna affect my life. But what I do think is that if I can control my attitude about the disease, that I'm surely gonna have a better outcome. And so what I've done, along with a lot of other things, diet, exercise, social connectivity, taking medicine, and getting mental health assistance, is to decide that I am going to use a positive outlook in order as a tool to help me with this disease. It's really a coping mechanism that I'm trying to utilize, another tool in my toolbox. But it's a decision, and it's not an easy decision, and it's taking a lot of hard work, and there are days that I fail. And I want to sort of take a break to mention something else that I think is really important that someone had mentioned to me that I kind of hadn't thought about, but I 100% agree with. It's this idea of toxic positivity. So I don't want to do these videos and come across as PD is all rainbows and puppies. Oh, it's just a wonderful world and I'm doing so great and you too can do great. Because I know that is not what this disease is about. And quite frankly, it's not what life is about either. But there's a lot of pain in PD. There's a lot of struggle. People have anxiety and depression. There's apathy that the disease itself dictates. And we shouldn't have to pretend that everything is okay when it's not okay. So I don't want to undervalue that negative emotional experience and overvalue a positive experience. Everyone needs to sit in their own space, and everyone needs room for themselves and space for themselves to be in. And I definitely don't want to use these videos to shove positivity down your throat if it's not helpful to you. Because the truth of the matter is, many days I'm not okay. But what I've done is I've sort of created a little rule book for myself. And I created the rule book while I was in a more positive space. And I think that if I can keep to some of these rules, or most of these rules, that my life is going to be enriched. So here are my rules. The choices I have made when dealing with PD. I am going to stay as active and socialize as much as possible. But I'm also going to honor my body and my need for sleep and my need for downtime. And that's something I had not done pre-pandemic. It's definitely something I had not done pre-Parkinson's diagnosis. And I think that it's going to be really important to keep these social interactions, but also to find balance. Balance is something I'm striving for. It's not something I've ever been great at. So that's my first rule. My second rule, when I immediately got diagnosed with Parkinson's, I'm like, oh, I got to take a leave of absence from work. I'm not going to be able to work. I'm going to retire early. This is not my plan. And I am changing that idea. And I am going to try to work as long as I possibly can while I'm still intellectually able to do that. But I'm also going to give myself a break and realize that I am not going to necessarily be able to do the things that I was doing beforehand, and I might need to find different ways to do those things. I'm going to allow myself to have moments of pity, But I'm also going to promise myself that those are not going to be long-lasting moments. That I'll have the pity party and then I'll call a friend, or I'll talk to my husband, or I'll go for a walk and try to regain my positive outlook. I choose to believe that there is value in my life despite my disease, and that the path I was going on is not going to be dictated by this disease, but in fact, I'm going to find ways to enrich my life with this disease by talking about PD, by looking for information about research, by raising funds for research, whatever I can find to make this into a positive, enrich my life, but not make it what my life is about. I believe that there's solutions to problems, and that when I find problems associated with the disease, I'm going to be able to search for a solution. It might not be the ideal solution, but I'm going to find a solution. So if my back is hurting, I'm going to call my physical therapist up. If my meds are not working correctly, I'm going to call my movement disorder specialist up. And I'm going to strive to find ways to do things and solutions to the problems. If I'm having trouble getting my socks up, I see that there's sticks that you can order to help get your socks up. And I'm committing to do that, to try to make my life as full as possible and be as independent as possible. I know that there's going to be moments where I'm just going to need to surrender to the disease. And that's okay, because I also know that it's not going to be all the time. I'm going to promise myself to find laughter and humor in uncomfortable situations, because I know this disease is going to bring upon uncomfortableness, possibly embarrassment. And I think that humor is the best medicine. And I'm going to make fun of myself if that helps me get through the moment. And I'm going to laugh before I cry. Most of all, I'm going to surround myself with supportive people who love me, because I think that's probably the best thing I can do to get through this journey. My life will not be the disease. I am a person living with a disease, but I am much, much more. And I promise to stop stigmatizing myself, because I'm my own worst critic. So what I ask of you, those of you with Parkinson's disease, those of you who might have mental health issues, or any other disease that carries stigma, I think you should share your story and share your voice, so together we can stomp out the stigma of Parkinson's disease, of mental illness, mental health issues, of any other disease that carries stigma with it. And what I'm trying to do most of all is spread this message often enough and loud enough, so one day, maybe I'll even convince myself. Love and peace to all my friends.